AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Life doesn't pause when you're sick. Vaccines against respiratory illnesses can help protect you and give you more playtime with your best friend. Depending on age and health status, vaccinations for flu, COVID-19, RSV, or pneumococcal infection may be recommended. Vaccines can help keep you from having a rough time. Learn more at cveep.org/vaccines-protect. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and CVEEP, fighting infectious respiratory disease.
You are listening to Hilary Topper on Air. And now, here's your host, Hilary Topper.
Welcome to Hilary Topper on Air, the podcast where we explore inspiring stories and expert insights to empower your active lifestyle. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Brian Fallon, the innovative mind behind BreathRunner and AquaTerra coaching. Brian has dedicated his career to revolutionizing the way athletes approach their running. By focusing on the often overlooked role of structured breath work, he's developed techniques that enhance endurance, improve speed, and reduce injuries. Through his coaching and his recent published handbook, Brian helps athletes of all levels unlock a more effective, efficient, and enjoyable running experience. Whether you're a seasoned runner or just starting out, this episode promises to inspire and educate you with actionable tips to take your performance to the next level. Let's jump in. Brian, welcome to the show. So, could you talk to us about how you got inspired to create BreathRunner method, and how does it differ from traditional running training programs?
Yeah, so I've been doing running triathlon stuff for a little over 20 years now. And it was actually during the pandemic, I think, and I was just out on a training run, and I was listening to a podcast, and it was a triathlon podcast, and they were talking to one of the world leading coaches about all different kinds of things. And the coach just kind of mentioned in passing about how he has his runners sync their breathing with the run cadence. And something about it just really lit a spark with me. And I'd never really heard about it before. So I started to dig into it. Intuitively, it made a lot of sense. And part of that is because when we swim, our swim stroke is synced to our breathing. We don't have a choice. It has to be, because otherwise we drown. So, but I'd never heard about it for running. So I started digging into it. And I found this guy, Ian Jackson, who wrote a book back in the late 70s, I think it was, that he called Breath Play. And he was a, pretty good runner, and also a amateur jazz ballet dancer. So he was very, very in sync with breathing and body movements and stuff. And he heard wrote about how he'd heard about syncing the breathing with the run cadence, and he started playing with it. And what he discovered was that he naturally fell into a rhythm with his running that was even inhale to even exhale. And he started to notice that one side of his body just seemed to always have problems, always had these nagging injuries, the calf issues, the knee issues, the hip issues. And so it dawned on him to alternate the pattern on the breathing and go to like an odd even or even odd, just so every breath cycle, the exhale started on a different foot. And what he discovered was in a few short weeks, all of his little niggling injuries, those little annoying pains, disappeared for him. And everything about his running seemed to just even out. And again, made perfect sense to me because that's why we bilaterally breathe in swimming, to balance everything out and keep everything far more even. So I started playing with it. And one of the things I realized was all of the coaches that had written stuff about synchronized breathing for running and Ian Jackson's work was all the focus was on the higher end efforts of running. And I was, already knew of, but I was really getting into the science behind the periodized training, which advocates a huge volume of low intensity running and only just a small amount of high intensity. So I was like, well, where's the breathing rhythm for the low intensity? So that's where I started playing with it. And eventually it came up with 4 basic breath patterns: a 9-step, a 7-step, a 5-step, and a 3-step, which I found correlated roughly with marathon pace for the 9-step, half marathon pace for the 7, 10K for the 5, 5K for the 3 for training purposes. So that's kind of been my contribution to the whole cycle evolution of this stuff, was to introduce the lower end things. But the more I continue to research and the more I learn about our breathing, our physiology, everything else, the more I'm finding how powerful this method of synchronizing breath with run cadence is. And it's continuing to be an evolutionary journey for me. But the more I'm introducing people to it, the more I'm finding how it really does work.
Now, you also wrote a book about it too, right?
I've written a handbook, and that's up and available on my website, breathrunner.com. And it goes over the basic structure and rationale behind it. I'm working on doing a more in-depth series of video tutorials and things like that, which hopefully I do intend to turn into a full-length book with training plans and everything.
It's awesome. So, BreathRunner emphasizes inclusivity and community as well. How do you foster a welcoming environment for runners of all levels, including run walkers?
Well, as you have seen, because we did a session with your group doing the run walk, that the beauty of the breath runner method is that it works for anybody doing any kind of walking or running. It does not matter your pace, all that matters is that you are present and connected to your breathing. And all of the benefits of breath work that the yogis and all the other people that have been doing this for thousands of years have been telling us how breath work reduces heart rate, it reduces blood pressure, it improves mood and mental acuity. I have found these all carry into our run if we are attentive to how we are breathing. And for performance in running, that by working on the breathing, not as a separate entity unto itself, but incorporated into the running activity, that both worlds come together. We're getting the physiological benefits of the running and the mental and deeper aspects of the breath work that is inherent as part of a deep structured breathing rhythm. And another benefit that I've been finding is that by concentrating on our breathing, that we work the respiratory system, the respiratory muscles and all the connective tissue and everything, so that by running easy using a connected breath, we prepare our body for the higher effort levels so that we can get better performance at higher levels because we are now able to breathe better at those higher efforts.
So it's almost like a mind-body connection, right?
Very much. I mean,
Yeah.
when I started this thing, I was very much wanting to stay away from that side of things and just, work on just making it just the physiological benefits which are manifest. But again, the more I learned, the more I, trained myself doing it and things, the more I started to realize the power that is available when we can bring our mental attitude into the physical aspect of our running.
Hmm. It's so interesting. So now you said you had 20 years of multi-sport experience. Can you tell us, our listeners, what has been the most rewarding aspect of coaching athletes?
Um, it's just seeing them cross the finish line at a race that they didn't believe possible when they started.
Hmm.
And that's been true whether it's a 5K or a sprint triathlon, the shortest distance for sprints, or up to Ironman distance. And I've had the honor of being able to work with para triathletes as well, um, that were in the running for the Paris Paralympics.
Wow, that is
And
so cool.
yeah, one of my athletes got um, third place. She was the standby athlete. Unfortunately, they were only allowing two per category. So my athlete was the backup in case something happened. And unfortunately, something did happen to the gold medal favorite, but it happened so close to race day that there was no possible way she would going to be able to fly to
Sure.
France and be in attendance for the race. Her plane would have landed about 30 minutes after the race had finished.
Oh my God. So that's too bad. Um, so talk to us a little bit now. So you've got this breath runner and your coaching is called AquaTerra coaching. What are some of the long-term goals for both BreathRunner and AquaTerra coaching?
Well, my tagline for AquaTerra is harmony through balance. And that is my overarching goal, is to introduce people to the sport, or people that are familiar with the sport, to get them at that next level of performance, but doing it in a holistic manner, not just in the sport itself, but in life itself. So that triathlon and all the training and stuff, it's not this separate compartment in their life, that it is part of their life, and it's they don't do triathlons, they are triathletes.
That's so
and
cool. I love
and
that.
the discipline and the energy and the effort that they can put into training for a race, they can use those principles for everything in life.
Mm, very cool. Now, a lot of people will say, I can't run because when I run, I breathe so heavy and I just can't get enough breath, right? It's probably the same when people say, I can't swim because I can't breathe, right? So, what advice do you give to someone who's just starting out on their running journey?
This is the brilliance of connecting your breath to your run cadence. And again, that's not my idea, but my contribution being to expand the breathing pattern out so it's usable at low efforts. And by being able to control our breathing in a nice, steady, controlled manner at a very easy, relaxed run effort, multiple things start to happen, not the least of which being our breathing, because we're doing it in a much smoother, controlled method. We're getting a better ventilation in and out of our lungs. And one of the problems that people have when they start going too hard and they get that out of breath feeling is they think they're running out of oxygen. But if I were to throw a pulse oximeter on their finger, they would still be probably up in the 90 percentage, probably mid 90 percentage. So there's plenty of oxygen in their bloodstream. What they're experiencing is actually a buildup of CO2. And we've got this very sensitive, I call it a computer chip in our brain, that all it does is monitor blood gas levels. And the second they go out of a very tight parameter, it starts setting off alarm bells. And so by controlling the breathing rate, we're getting a better removal of the CO2. So we're not setting off those alarms as easily. And if you're running along and, for instance, a 4-step inhale, 5-step exhale for a 9-step marathon pace run, if you're finding that is a very difficult pattern to stay in, that you're not feeling like you're getting enough breathing in, slow down. That's the key. Your body is telling you you're running too hard for what we want to do. If you want me to breathe in this pattern, we got to back it off. And when I first developed this, the breathing patterns, and I started to test it on myself, it was in 2021. So, the pandemic was still going on, but things were starting to open up. but I signed up for 3 half marathons, one in the spring, one in the summer, one in the fall. But because the pandemic was still going on and things were still new, the spring and summer one both got pushed into the fall. So I ended up with 3 half marathons scheduled, all happening within 4 weeks of each other.
Oof.
So the good news was I had all year basically to train for these. When I first started seriously training in about March, a 9-step pattern, I was running roughly an 11:30 pace, 11:30 per minute, mile per minute pace, minute per mile. Sorry. Um, but that's just, what I had to do to stay into that breathing pattern. I didn't care about what my watch said. I didn't care what my heart rate was. I didn't care about anything else. I just focused on my breathing and I just stayed in that pattern. And I just did my training and I did, a polarized training program that I'd set up for myself throughout the spring, throughout the summer, so that I got to the first half marathon race. And I knew, because I had these 2 other ones, coming up right after this, I didn't want to go too hard on this first race. So I took the first 2 miles just staying at a 9-step marathon pace breathing pattern, using it as a warm up for the first 2 miles. And then I settled into my 7-step half marathon pace for most of the rest of it. And only in like the last 5K did I up the pace from there. When I looked back at the data, because again, I wasn't paying attention to what anything my watch said while I was running. When I looked back at my data, in those first 2 miles, I was running 8:55 pace. I
Wow.
had dropped over 2 minute per mile off of my pace.
Wow.
But that's the beauty of the polarized training method of staying at a low heart rate, low breathing rate, that you don't do the damage to the body where your body now has to just be in repair mode, and that you just do enough to trigger adaptation and your body is able to marshal resources and respond by bringing in more mitochondria into the muscle fibers, more capillary into the muscle beds, all of these things that eventually let me run faster.
Hmm.
But it takes weeks and months for this sort of thing to lay the foundation for this kind of stuff. So patience is the key word.
So interesting. So my last question is, when you do this breath runner 9, 9-step or 7-step or whatever, are you breathing through your nose or are you breathing through your mouth or are you breathing through both?
And my answer is yes. I try when I'm running at the slower efforts to breathe as much as I can through my nose. As effort picks up, breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then when I start to run hard, I have to breathe through the mouth. There's a lot of breath work gurus out there all over social media that say you got to breathe only through your nose, tape your mouth shut, blah, blah, blah. I don't subscribe to that. I mean, our physiology, our nose is made of cartilage. If I breathe hard enough, if I inhale strongly, my nostrils close up. That's by design. When we're breathing very hard, we have to bring in a very large volume of air very quickly. And that's why we breathe through the mouth. If breathing through our nose was the end all be all greatest thing ever, we would have adapted with a separate digestive tract and a separate respiratory tract, like the dolphins and the whales.
Hmm.
We have a mix of both, and it's for a reason. There's huge benefits to be had by breathing through the nose. But I tell everybody, do not artificially limit yourself just because somebody said so. Breathe how you've got to breathe. Some days we're congested and breathing through the nose just isn't a practical thing. We don't have a choice but to breathe through the mouth. But the beauty of running is we breathe hard enough that we end up forcing a lot of that mucus and contaminants out, and we get to enjoy the things, our favorite things like snot rockets and things. But that's our body getting rid of that stuff so that by the time we're done running, maybe we're got clear nose.
And Brian, this was so informative, and I truly appreciate your time today. Could you tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about BreathRunner?
Sure. My website, breathrunner.com, is the number one place. Again, I've got my handbook up there. I've got training plans available on Training Peaks, which is a scheduling platform. And I hope to have more venues for training plans soon. I've got the BreathRunner Club, which is going to soon be featuring a lot of the videos and things like that. It's a small monthly fee for the club, but I'm hoping to be able to bring a lot of the knowledge that I've learned, a lot of other experts in. And then, of course, on social media, just find me on BreathRunner and, at BreathRunner on most of the social media platforms. I'm on Substack. And yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
thank you so much, Hilary. Appreciate you inviting me.
This show was produced by Hilary Topper and sponsored by the Russo Law Group, Long Island's signature elder law, estate planning, and special needs law firm. For more information, visit vjrussolaw.com. And PlayTry, your multi-sport specialist for all your triathlon needs. They have so many opportunities, including franchising. If you love the sport of triathlon, check out playtry.com and learn more about opportunities, or if you want to shop there, check them out. They've got great prices and they've got amazing customer service.